This is Binghamton, New York, and this is a first for me. I've never been to a pet cemetery. I think of Stephen King when I hear the words pet cemetery. King said that of all of his books, Pet Sematary was the story that scared him the most. Sorry, Shrimp, but you'll be cremated at the vet like all my other dogs. I'd rather look at old photos and videos of my babies than visit a grave. But to each their own. Rinny the German Shepherd must be short for Rin Tin Tin. Tiny headstone for probably a tiny dog named Muffin. Riley Klutz. Sounds like you must have been a big goofball. Zachary has a good-sized stone, bigger than what some humans get. Winston the Whippet, complete with a photo. Oh, there's a cat. Hobbs has a bone engraving. Duncan Wolf, beautiful Maltese. Mama's Baby Cakes. My dogs always have nicknames too. Shrimpy's nickname is Rotten Monkey. Black cat named Boomerang. Oh, I get it. It's Boo because he's a spooky black cat. Woo Woo was a little fluff ball, loved by Mom and Dad. Bailey the Beloved Golden. We're here to see the grave of another animal, not a dog or a cat. There's someone famous buried here. A Kentucky Derby winner named Exterminator. He won in 1918. Exterminator was actually a last-minute replacement when the other horse buried here, Son Briar, had a medical issue. Exterminator was a 30-to-1 shot, and he was at the back of the pack until the very last minute. He came from behind and won it all. Of course, everybody loves a come-from-behind story, so this horse was a national celebrity. And he retired in this town, and children here were allowed to visit with him, and Exterminator became a beloved part of this community. The biggest celebrity to come out of Binghamton, New York was born on Christmas Day, 1924. This bandstand gazebo and the nearby carousel inspired a TV episode he created. In the episode, a man goes back to his childhood home in a time warp. Imagine, if you will, that this is Rod Serling's hometown.
You're traveling through another dimension. A dimension not only of sight and sound, but of mind. A journey into a wondrous land whose boundaries are that of imagination. Your next stop, the Twilight Zone.
The episode is called Walking Distance, and this carousel from the story is still in operation today and has been since 1925, where Mr. Twilight Zone himself grew up and developed that surreal imagination. So he could create one of the best TV shows of all time, and maybe even the most unique TV show of all time. Another day, another diner. This one just closed recently too, like the diner in Connecticut. This is a 1950s diner. They got bigger as time went on compared to the diners of the 30s and 40s. As the suburbs started to spread after World War II, these diners were more family-oriented and not as much geared toward city workers getting a quick meal. The colors got bolder, with red stools and booths. This diner looks like it could have been on the TV show Happy Days. But I can see why it's gone out of business when all these storefronts are empty. Closed. Closed on the other side. And closed. There's not much hope of bringing it back to life in this location. That arch says this town is the home of the square deal. I assumed it was something a local politician said or something Harry Truman would say, but the square deal was a pledge of a businessman named George Johnson to treat his employees well at his shoe factory here in Binghamton. He was very generous to his workers. They had the best medical plan in the country, subsidized housing, swimming pools and playgrounds, a long list of benefits. But when Johnson died, so did his business. Most shoes are made in China now. A lighthouse here in the middle of this town. No ocean around. It's upstate New York. This lighthouse was part of a gas station called Tower Service Station, and supposedly it's a chain, and some of these lighthouses can still be seen in parts of New England. But I don't recall seeing any lighthouse gas stations back home. But I will keep an eye out from now on. This little rural town called Appalachian, here in upstate New York, was the scene of an infamous event back in 1957 when the population of this town was just 277 people. A New York mafia boss had a house out here. It was his little hideaway, and he decided to call a meeting consisting of 100 of the most powerful crime bosses in the country, all to meet in this little town. It was a big deal. 200 pounds of steak and other meats were ordered for this historic event. They even called it a summit like they were heads of state. But when local cops saw dozens of brand new Cadillacs without a state license plate strangely driving up dirt roads here, the police put 2 and 2 together and called for backup. In the end, over 60 mafia bosses were arrested, and all those arrests at once almost single-handedly destroyed the mafia in this country. It was a huge story back in the day, and it still is. And what does it have to do with a blue dolphin on a diner? Nothing. I just think the dolphin is a cool roadside attraction in an infamous little town. This is Wego, New York, and there's something in this town that gave me a good chuckle. What a cute town. Some places give a vibe that it's a home to eccentrics, and this is one of those places. This building was built by a chain gang in 1908. It was the county jail for 80 years. Still has bars on the windows. Then when the building was sold, someone turned part of it into a jail-themed restaurant. The booths in the dining area were actual jail cells. They went all out with the jail concept. So much so that it went out of business because the food was terrible, just like it is in a real jail, which I thought was pretty funny. You don't want to be too authentic with some things. Now they're luxury apartments. I really like this little town. Nice gazebo. A memorial to a firefighter. He's holding a child. But why is the water in the fountain soapy? Are they cleaning it? Or is it supposed to be that foamy stuff that firefighters spray? Strange. We went from dolphin on a diner to polar bear on an ice cream shop. But he's holding an empty cone, no ice cream in it. Maybe he's lactose intolerant. This is Elmira, New York. There was a POW camp here called Elmira during the Civil War. Thousands of Confederate soldiers died here. The conditions were so bad. But there's no memorial or anything, like there is for Union soldiers that died at Andersonville Prison down south, including my grandmother's great-grandfather who starved to death there. But no museums or monuments here. I guess that's what happens when you fight on the wrong side of history, trying to maintain slavery. You're not worth remembering. Now this town looks like Elmira for a different reason. It's a rough-looking town. I'm glad I decided not to boondock here. This is a big cemetery. Fortunately, I see signs to help us out. We're here to find the grave of a brilliant man, an American treasure. He was an author, and he was really kind of the first stand-up comedian. I guess rumors of his death are not exaggerated. Mark Twain is buried here. He was born in Missouri, lived in Connecticut, but is buried in Elmira, New York because it's the hometown of his wife. And they spent a lot of time here, and he wrote a lot of his work here. Looks like his entire family is buried with him. Twain said to go to heaven for the climate and go to hell for the company. Here's another Twainism. Death is the starlit strip between the companionship of yesterday and the reunion of tomorrow. After a pleasant night boondocking in Corning, New York, I'm leaving New York and heading into Pennsylvania. I had to stop. I feel like I'm getting a goodbye present from New York. A little Americana to start my day, to get me into a roadside attraction mood, and think about a time when Route 66 was in its heyday. These look like they're from the 1930s or 40s. Very nice collection that puts me in a nostalgic frame of mind. Goodbye, New York.